Hi, Alison. How are you?
Uncle Brian, I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing really well, actually.
Good, good, good. Finally, we have been able to make the
Yeah,
link.
for sure. Yeah.
What it was is that eight hour difference?
Yeah, pretty much 8 to 9 hours difference here
8 to 9 hour
in Kenya.
difference.
Yep.
Good, good, great, great. All right, so Alison, we are focusing on missions today, and we I thought it was fitting to
Hmm.
chat with you, being a Jamaican and all, and you're on a missions trip.
Yes, sir.
And I want us to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, Alison, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, let's see what's interesting to share.
Hmm.
Um, I'm relatively young, I think. I'm in my 30s. I was born and raised in Jamaica. My parents attended Brethren Church, particularly Bethany Fellowship, so that's my church home.
Hmm.
I love the Lord. I was fortunate enough to get saved at a pretty early age.
Yeah.
So I got saved when I was 9. I got baptized when I was 12 and spent
That's
my high school years trying to figure out what that all meant. Um, and yeah, honestly, but fortunately, during the end of high school, I think is when it all came together. And when I was on my way out of high school, is when I really recommitted my life to the Lord. And that's when stuff started to fall in place. And I was grateful that that happened sooner than later in my life because I've been able
yes,
to use that time so far to do
yes,
all these amazing things that Lord has called me into and has exposed me to. So I play the drums.
yes,
Never been formally trained, so I don't particularly consider myself a great drummer, but I am functional.
yes.
And I am a physical therapist, and I taught at the University of the West Indies. So I'm currently on break from that because of more information that will come next.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me.
All right, great, great. So you said Bethany is your church home back
That's
in
correct.
Jamaica here. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Interestingly, we know that from time to time there are students who go off on what we call a gap year. Um,
Right.
and usually this comes before college, right?
Yes, it does usually.
Yes. Okay. All right. So interestingly, tell us a little bit about your decision for taking a gap, quote unquote, a gap year, because you said you're at the university and so on, and I'm figuring that's for work. But just tell us a little bit about that and how has that been for you, your break from
Ah, right. So it is a gap year, but not in the traditional sense, as you pointed out. So usually, um, the students who are trying to make that transition after college or before college, they take a year to try to figure themselves out and so on. The big difference here is that I would have considered myself figured out. I
yeah.
was working, as I said, at the University of the West Indies. I was teaching, and I'm also completing a PhD in sport biomechanics. So that's movement science and predicting injuries and improving performance and technique, things like that. Um, and so I thought, I had life pretty much figured out. And then here presents this opportunity. I came to the Climb Conference, which is a leadership conference hosted by no One Community Church, but really started through Pastor Conway Edwards. And so I came to that conference 3 years ago. And at the end of that conference, we had a dinner. And during that dinner, I was asking a lot of questions of Pastor Conway. Coming out of that, sometime after he presented this opportunity for me to come and do a year at the church. I thought it was a crazy idea because, one, like I said earlier, I felt I was pretty established. I know what's going on with my life. I have a pretty clear direction of what I want to do. Um, and so I really didn't take the offer seriously. I came to the Climb conference the following year, and at that time he said, "What are you doing about this proposal that I made?" To which I realized, okay, well, first of all, he's serious, and second of all, I didn't expect that that opportunity would essentially wait on me. So that's
Okay.
when I started to give it some thought. And when I came last year to the Climb conference, he said, "I'm not taking any more excuses. You need to do something about this." So it
Hmm.
just so happened that I was coming up for contract renewal, which is normally an automatic process in my career. But that's when I said, okay, Lord, if I'm going to do this, then I mean, what are the things that I would need to see? And the things that I would need to see, that I felt I needed to see, was the details. What am I going there to do, and what is it going to look like for me, and all of that. And I didn't have any of those details. But what prompted me to do it was, I can stay here in Jamaica. I can stay in Jamaica, and I can do the things that I know how to do. I can continue to thrive in my job, and the predictability that comes with the life that I've built and that I know. Or I can challenge myself to trust the Lord more.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it would have been for me, because you're leaving what you know, you leave in the comfort, you leave in where you
The
feel,
comfort
so to
zone.
speak, established,
Mhm.
and you're going to somewhere you have no details for, you don't know what life is going to be, to essentially be an intern, to be a student again. And so that's the move that I made. And now what I do at one community church, I'm in what they call a gap internship program. I'm the eldest in the program, which, has its benefits and its challenges. But I'm learning things I've always been interested in, but never had the opportunity to learn formally. So I have classes in the mornings. I have leadership class. I have spiritual formation, apologetics, theology. And in the evenings or in the afternoons, I spend my day working in my ministry area. And my ministry area is, I'm Pastor Conway's intern. And so I jokingly said, I'm essentially a part of every ministry because as the
Mhm.
lead pastor, he has oversight for pretty much everything that
Everything.
happens at the church.
Mhm.
So I am always busy. I'm pretty tired most of the times, but I am growing and I'm learning in ways I know I wouldn't have if I didn't say yes to this move.
Okay. All right. So that is how the connection between Jamaica and you ending up in Dallas
That's
at one
correct.
community church. Well, I must mention at this
Yes.
point that I mean I attended the Climb conference this year, and you played host for us, and it was
Yes.
fantastic. We certainly enjoyed the all of the behind the scene work that you did for us, Alison, and we are truly
Appreciate that.
grateful. Yeah, so
You're
talk
very
to us
kind.
about
Thank you.
all right, talk to us about your mission trip because while we were at the conference, we heard that there was a group going off to Kenya. Tell us about that.
Yes. Right. So I'm in Kenya right now, actually. So there is a mission trip that was happening during the past week. We came here February 2nd. We left Dallas, rather, February 2nd. It takes about maybe 21 hours to get here.
Yes.
Um, and what's happening is that one community church has a partnership with an organization called 410 Bridge. And 410 Bridge, their aim essentially is to go into some of the poorest places on earth, the poorest communities, and they work with them. They partner with the local leaders, the church leaders, community leaders, and they work with them to get them to be completely self-sustaining at the end of 10 years. And so
Okay.
one community church has partnered with 410 for a community here in a few communities actually here in Kenya, just outside of an area called Nanyuki, Muturithia. And so we're now in, I think, year 4 or 5 of that partnership of getting them to be completely self-sustaining. And so I heard of the trip and I
Yes.
said, well, I've never really been so interested in missions, but I mean, if I love the Lord and there are these other opportunities in which to serve Him, why not read up? Why not ask the questions and say, how does the Lord want to use my talents in Kenya, or
Mhm.
how does He want to change my life when I get here? And so I
Yes.
just eventually made that move, and so I just jumped on. So this work has been going on long before me, and probably will continue long after me. But I just saw
Yeah.
it as an opportunity to honor the Lord in this way. And so here I am in Kenya.
So tell me something. Congratulations. But what were your experience, the emotions like leading up to this trip in Kenya? I mean, going to well, it's a part of Africa, right? And
Yes.
you've never been in Africa before, have you?
Never been in Africa before. Absolutely not. No. So, um, it's hard to really track what those emotions were because I think they were rapidly shifting.
Yes.
There are moments that I would be, okay, I'm pretty sober about this. Yes, I just need to get the funds raised. I need to talk to these people. I need to read up some more and so on. And you're very methodical about it. And then there are
Yes.
other times I'm just like, am I? Someone needs to pinch me. Am I really going to Africa? Like, is this really happening? I can't picture that this is something I really signed up to do.
Hmm.
Um, but it really, I mean, it really, I think the overarching emotion was that Lord would choose to use a regular person like myself to go to somewhere that he's been using regular people all along, and that
Yes.
somehow my experiences and their experiences can come together to demonstrate that God is sovereign anywhere in the world, to demonstrate that God is doing a work anywhere in the world, and that, to have the humbling experience that outside of yourself and outside of our experiences and stories, that God is doing something, and that if you're humble enough to just say, you know what, Lord, I'm willing to give you my time and I'm willing to give you my talents, and you get to decide where they go, what they do, for the glory of your name. And I think that has been the overarching experience leading up to the trip,
Yes.
and has definitely been confirmed now that I'm at the end of the trip.
Okay. All right, let me interject here. You mentioned something about raising the funds and so on without mentioning
Yes.
a dollar value. What part of the trip, the participants like yourself would be responsible for coming up with? That is,
Um, so we get from one community church, they just gave us a figure, which in my estimation, based on the experiences that they prepared for us, and some of the things that we would have needed to afford here, seems really less than what it really would cost.
yes,
So they gave us a figure and asked us to raise that. And I think the discipline there is that if you pay nothing for it, you value it less.
that is
And
true.
so by being a part, an active participant in trying to procure the funds, having to talk to people, having to explain what you're doing, having to be versed on, the work that you're actually going to participate in, really helped us to, I guess, one, get grounded before you got grounded, if you understand what I'm
Mhm.
saying, and
Yes,
two, to to start to adopt humble attitude of, I can ask and I can trust that the Lord will provide for me to go. But like I said, that figure that they quoted us was much less, because they really packed some amazing experiences into our trip. And
Mhm.
things are expensive nowadays, and here in Kenya, in fact, the foreign exchange rate, so a US dollar is less in Kenya than it is in Jamaica. So you'd need
Okay.
more money in Jamaica to afford a Kenyan shilling versus in Jamaica, which is crazy. So things are expensive here
Okay.
generally.
Yes, yes.
But God is so kind.
God is our provider. All right. So
Indeed.
what has been your experience now that you are in Kenya on this mission trip? What are some of the things you are doing and have been involved in? You got that, Alison?
Okay, so you were kind of breaking up. I think I heard most of it. You're asking what are some of the things I'm doing now that I'm in Kenya?
Yes.
So the major thing that we came here to do was to introduce to this community that they've been working with for some time, the WASH program. So
What
in
is that?
December, a medical team actually came, and they realized that one of the major problems that they're having here in that community is the lack of access to clean water. And so because of that, persons were getting sick, gastrointestinal issues, um, respiratory issues, just because of the lack of cleanliness, because of the lack of access to water. And so the WASH program is really a whole thought out curriculum for different levels of school students and teachers, that basically is an acronym for water, sanitation, and hygiene and hand washing. And so the aim was that we're going to be working with some schools, we're going to be working with some kids and the teachers and the principals, and we're going to be presenting to them this content about the WASH program. No, the truth is, even though we're preparing mostly to have that conversation and prepare for a whole school day, we really also had to consider that there are different stakeholders in making something like this happen. And so here on the trip, we had a lot of research. We drove around to some of the wells, and we made some assessments and asked some questions. We had a meeting with the Leadership Council. So those are the leaders within the community that are elected by the community for the community. So we sat down and we had meetings with the leadership council to just discuss, okay, the viability of how do we get the clean water here sustainably? What are some of the problems and how do we think through some of those options? But in every interaction, because we are Christians, we were able to infuse those with evangelism. And so there was a time when we got to one of the schools, they had a whole welcoming ceremony because the culture, the Maasai culture, they welcome you with dances and with singing and with beads and the works. And so at the end of the welcoming ceremony, we got a chance to just hang out with the students. So I ended up teaching a class, I guess because I'm a teacher, I ended up teaching a class. At the end of that class, I was able to present the gospel to those kids. And then we also got to sit in churches and we got to share the gospel as well. We got to share our testimonies right throughout the trips in the formal and the informal conversations. Um, in fact, we had a section where we broke up into males and females, and 18 males gave their life to the Lord coming out of the Maasai culture.
Hallelujah.
And some of these women that they were just requesting prayers, they were asking for peace and unity because as much as the women do a lot in the culture, the women make the homes, literally build the homes. They make the house a home, so they furnish it and they do the cooking, they take care of the children. If they're farmlands, the women are the farmers and so on. But they're still led heavily by the men,
Yes.
and so there was a home that we went to visit with, and the lady is doing the work, but the man is the leader. And then at the end of the conversation, the man said, I want to give my life to Jesus Christ. And as soon as he knelt, he bowed his knee, the wife bowed her knee. She didn't vocalize anything, but she's
Mhm.
following the lead of her
Or-
husband. And if
yes,
he says we are doing this today, then the whole
that's
family
what
is
we're
doing this
doing.
today. And I
Yes.
thought that was truly amazing. So we got the opportunity to lead her family, lead that family to the Lord. We got an opportunity to lead kids to the Lord. We got an opportunity to just pray for that community. One of the big things because they're they're what's the term? They're not just farmlands, but they also herd cattle.
Yes.
And so a big thing that they rely on heavily is rain. And so when we came, many times the prayer request was, can you please pray for rain? Can you please
Referring.
pray for
Yes.
rain? The day we were leaving, it started raining. Leaving that community, the day we were leaving, it started raining. And just yesterday, we got some reports because that community is actually 5 hours away from the airport. So we're close to the airport now. But
Yes.
we got reports that they've been experiencing rain. And so we just have to really thank the Lord for that.
Yes.
And it may seem simple, but it's these little things that demonstrate that God is doing something in the hearts and lives of people, you know,
And
outside of ourselves,
yeah, and
and
a
it's
testament.
amazing.
Yeah, testament to the fact that he answers prayers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Alison, as we wrap up now, um, tell me something. How would you encourage our young people, yourself being a youth, a young person,
Thank you.
and adults as well, to be involved in missions or to find out about missions or want to go on mission trips?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would have to challenge us to is to live a life outside of ourselves. I think depending on the culture that we grew up in, that we just focus on ourselves. We focus on, getting mine and ensuring that I have and securing the bag for me. And at least as far as I'm willing to go is me and my family,
Yeah,
and me and my house, and me and my people, or a few friends of mine that I will always roll with. But that the work of the Lord it's global. He has a whole prophetic plan and desire for the earth. And the fact that we're still alive means that he wants us to be a part of it.
yes,
And so before you even think of missions like international and going somewhere else, to just get to a point where I can say, you know what, Lord, you've designed this life, you have the rights to it. So whatever it is that you want to do with me, and I think the smaller acts of obedience make it easier to say yes to the bigger acts of obedience.
that is
And so if I'm willing to honor the Lord in my everyday life, then it makes the leap to honor him with something that's going to require time and requiring you to be always away and from your home and so on. A easier leap to make. And so I really just want to encourage persons to just start with the everyday acts of obedience, and you will absolutely be surprised where the Lord will take you. I mean, I never had it on a vision board or anything that I want to be in Africa one day. It never came up, never thought about it. Um, but the small acts of obedience, one day you keep your head down, you keep trusting the Lord, and you look up, and then you'll be surprised that you're in Africa, or you'll be
Yeah.
surprised at what the Lord has done. And
Look
the
what
aim
God
is
has
to keep loving the Lord because you want to love Him. And then from loving the Lord, because you love Him, you do the things that He's called you to do, and He equips you to do exactly those things. Submissions, it's an amazing thing. There's a way that we define a successful mission, and we say that if the people who you're going to, as well as the people who are going, if both lives are changed, it's a successful mission. And so don't just think that you're trying to do something for people. It's not a paternalistic approach to try to patronize a few people that are in need. But both lives are changed, because if God is doing something, everybody needs to show up. And so that would be my encouragement. I know it's not very mission specific. This is my very first international mission, but in the future I may have a lot more tidbits.
done.
But for now, that really is what I would say. Just start with learning to honor the Lord, learning to say yes to the everyday obediences, the everyday asks, the everyday living a life to honor Him, where He gets your time, He gets your resources, He gets your talent, and you will be absolutely surprised with where you may end up and what the Lord may call you to do. And the more you do it, is the easier it is to say yes.
Alison, I want to thank you very much for sharing with us. We see the passion coming forth in
Thank
your
you.
expression, and I'm sure our youths in particular will think about this. This is something that can resonate with them,
Yeah,
and seeing you there as a representative of themselves,
yeah,
as it were,
for
and
sure.
realizing that this is something that they can do too.
And just say, Uncle Brian, two quick things. That one, young people, you want to do it when you're young. We have all the time. We have all the energy. I mean, you may not have the money, but you have the energy, and the energy goes a far way, because God is not asking you to be rich. He's not asking you to have money in the bank and all these things put down. Not that He has a problem with that, but I'm just saying, energy you don't get back. Ask the older people. You don't get it back. While you have it, use it, give it, and you'll be absolutely surprised at what the Lord does with it. And the second thing I will say is that you cannot outgive God. You can't outgive God. You can't say, boy, all right, I'm going to give the Lord this time in my life. But I'm nervous that he may not give me what I want. You can't outgive God. God gave His absolute very best, that you just can't match it. So everything that you think is your absolute best that you've given to God, He's able to do exceedingly above and abundantly above more than that. And so you can't, don't live thinking as of a small God. We don't serve a small God who lives in scarcity. We serve a big God who can provide above and beyond. And so give to the Lord. You can't outgive Him. He will win every single time. But do
Thank
it while
you.
you're young. Do it
That's
now.
Thanks for the encouragement. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Alison. I'm sure this is going to go a far way. Just
I
want
really
to
hope so.
wish you ever blessing and
Praise the Lord.
the safety as you return. I guess you return to the US and
Yes.
eventually back to Jamaica. The Lord bless
Yes.
you and keep you,
Thank
my
you so much, Uncle Brian.
okay.
Appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thanks, Alison. Okay.